I'm Daniel, 84 years old. For 30 years, I worked overtime. Not once in a while, not during emergencies. Overtime was my normal. Nights blurred into mornings. Weekends felt like weekdays with less traffic. Holidays were just quieter work days with better excuses. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was doing what a good man does. I told myself I was providing, protecting, building something solid. What I never told myself, because I didn't want to hear it, was that I was spending the most valuable thing I had without ever checking the balance. Time. When you're young, time feels endless. It renews itself every morning. You wake up tired, but confident there will be another chance tomorrow to slow down, to catch up, to be present. I believed that for decades. I grew up watching my father work hard and say very little. That was the model. You didn't talk about feelings. You didn't question the grind. You worked, you endured, and one day you rested. That one day became my favorite lie. I remember the first time I stayed late at work. I was proud of it. I called my wife and said I'd be home late, and she said, "Okay." I heard disappointment in her voice, but I told myself she'd understand. It was for us, after all. That's how it starts. One late night becomes routine. Routine becomes expectation. Expectation becomes identity. I wasn't Daniel anymore. I was the reliable one, the overtime guy, the man who could always be counted on. And when people praise you for sacrificing yourself, it becomes very hard to stop. For years, my calendar belonged to everyone but me, my boss, my clients, my co-workers. Deadlines had more authority over my life than my own needs. If someone asked how I was doing, I said, busy. Busy became my personality. Busy became my excuse. Busy became my shield. I missed things I can never get back. Not just the big moments everyone talks about, but the small ones that actually shape a life. Quiet dinners, unrushed conversations, evenings where nothing needed to be accomplished. I told myself those moments weren't important, that I was trading them for something better. Here's the truth no one tells you when you're working overtime. You don't trade time for money. You trade time for hope. Hope that it will be worth it. Hope that you'll enjoy life later. Hope that the people you love will wait. Hope is a fragile currency. My children grew up while I was exhausted. I was there, but not really. I listened with half an ear. I answered questions while thinking about work. I told myself presence didn't require attention. I was wrong. You don't notice distance growing while it's happening. It happens quietly, politely. Everyone adapts. They stop asking. They stop waiting. They stop expecting. That's the part that hurts the most, when you finally slow down and realize the world learned to move without you. I remember coming home late one night, another night, and the house was already asleep. I stood in the kitchen with the lights off, eating something cold from the fridge, and I felt a strange emptiness. I told myself I was tired. I wasn't. I was disconnected. But I didn't know the word for it yet. Working overtime teaches you something dangerous. It teaches you to ignore signals. Your body tells you to rest, you push through. Your mind tells you to pause, you distract yourself. Your relationships ask for more, you promise soon. You train yourself to override your instincts. And once you're good at that, it doesn't stop at work. I stayed in situations that drained me because I was used to enduring. I ignored discomfort because I'd practiced doing so for years. I confused resilience with self-neglect. People admired my discipline. No one saw the cost. At 40, I still believed balance was something you achieved after success. At 50, I believed I was too deep to change. At 60, I believed slowing down would mean admitting I'd wasted something. That belief kept me trapped longer than any job ever did. Here's a hard truth I learned too late. Overtime doesn't just steal hours, it steals perspective. When you're always rushing, you don't ask why. When you're always tired, you don't question direction. When you're always busy, you don't notice when your life stops feeling like yours. I thought guarding my time was selfish. Now I understand it was survival. Time is the only thing you can't renegotiate later. You can rebuild finances. You can repair some relationships. You can reinvent careers. You cannot relive ordinary days. And those are the days that matter most. I used to believe my value came from how much I produced, from how much I sacrificed, from how indispensable I was. At 84, I see how flawed that thinking was. You are replaceable at work. You are not replaceable in your own life. No company remembers the nights you stayed late once you're gone. No email chain preserves your effort. No promotion holds your hand when your health falters. What remains are the moments you chose to be present for, and the ones you didn't. I don't hate my career. I'm not bitter about working hard. I'm proud of my dedication. But pride doesn't erase regret. I regret not guarding my time more fiercely. I regret not treating my attention as something sacred. I regret believing I could borrow endlessly from the future. The future always collects its debt. If you're listening to this and telling yourself, this doesn't apply to me, that's exactly what I used to say. If you're telling yourself, just a few more years, I said that too. Those years pass faster than you think. And one day, you wake up older, slower, quieter, and finally aware of how much life you gave away without realizing it. If this feels personal, it should. Leave a comment and tell me how many hours a week you give away without questioning it. It's about what work quietly took from me while I wasn't looking. When you work overtime for years, people assume the cost is physical exhaustion. They imagine sore backs, tired eyes, maybe stress. That's not the real cost. The real cost is erosion. It happens so slowly, you don't notice it until whole pieces of your life are gone. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to neglect my family, my health, or myself. I woke up every morning deciding to just get through the day. And then I did that again, and again, and again, for 30 years. I missed moments that didn't seem important at the time because nothing dramatic happened. No arguments, no ultimatums, just absence. I wasn't there when my daughter learned to ride a bike. I saw the picture later. I smiled and said, "That's great," and went back to checking my emails. I wasn't there for most school nights. I came home after dinner, kissed foreheads, asked how their day was while already thinking about tomorrow. I told myself weekends would make up for it. Weekends never make up for it. Children don't remember quantity. They remember consistency. They remember who was available when they needed someone. And overtime trains you to be unavailable even when you're physically present. That's something no one warns you about. Your body can be in the room while your mind is still at work. And over time, people stop trying to pull you back. They adjust. My wife adjusted first. She stopped asking me when I'd be home. She stopped planning dinners around my schedule. She stopped expecting me to sit and talk without looking at the clock. I thought that meant she understood. It meant she adapted. Adaptation looks peaceful on the surface. Underneath, it's often quiet disappointment. By the time I noticed the distance, it felt normal. That's the danger. You normalize loss when it happens gradually. Working overtime also changed how I saw myself. I started measuring my worth by output, by hours, by how tired I was. If I was exhausted, I felt justified. If I was busy, I felt important. Rest made me uneasy. Silence made me restless. Time off felt like something I hadn't earned. That mindset doesn't switch off when you leave the office. It follows you home. It follows you into retirement. It follows you into old age. Even now, at 84, I sometimes catch myself feeling guilty for sitting still. That's conditioning. Another thing overtime took from me was my health, but not in the obvious way. I didn't collapse dramatically. I didn't get a wake-up call diagnosis at 40. My health faded quietly. Weight crept on. Sleep shortened. Stress lived in my chest like a permanent tenant. I ignored it because nothing was seriously wrong. Nothing is seriously wrong until something is. By the time I slowed down, my body had already adjusted to decades of tension. Recovery took longer. Energy came back slower. I don't regret working hard. I regret believing my body was an infinite resource. Here's something most people don't want to hear. Your body doesn't break suddenly. It wears out politely, and politeness is easy to ignore. Overtime also stole something more subtle: my ability to enjoy unproductive time. I forgot how to just be. If there was no goal, no task, no outcome, I felt uncomfortable. I needed a reason to sit, to talk, to rest. Life doesn't require justification, but I treated every hour like it needed to earn its place. When I finally retired, I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt lost. No schedule, no urgency, no one waiting for me to respond. For the first time, I had time, but no idea how to live inside it. That's when the regret really arrived. Not loud, not dramatic, just the steady realization that I had postponed my own life for so long that I didn't know how to inhabit it anymore. I had guarded deadlines better than relationships. I had protected productivity better than presence. I had given my best hours to people who replaced me without hesitation. Work moved on. Life didn't wait. The hardest moments came when my children were grown. They loved me. I don't doubt that. But our relationship was polite, not close. They didn't come to me with problems. They didn't linger on the phone. Conversations were updates, not connections. That hurt more than I expected. Not because they owed me closeness, but because I finally understood why it wasn't there. Closeness requires time invested early, not apologies later. I tried to rebuild. I really did. But rebuilding is slower than building, and some windows don't open as wide the second time. That's another thing overtime teaches you to underestimate: timing. Some opportunities are not permanent. You assume you can always reconnect later. You can't always. I also lost friendships, not through conflict, through neglect. I cancelled too often, showed up tired, left early, promised to catch up soon. Soon became never. Friendships don't survive indefinitely on good intentions. They survive on shared time. Overtime eats that first. At 84, when I look back, I don't count my career achievements. I count the conversations I didn't have, the evenings I rushed through, the weekends I mentally skipped. I thought guarding my time meant being lazy or selfish. Now I know guarding your time is how you guard your life. If you don't decide what deserves your hours, someone else will. And they will always want more. Work will always expand to fill the time you give it, always. It has no natural stopping point. You have to be the one who says enough. I didn't. And the cost wasn't immediate, it was cumulative. That's what makes it dangerous. If you're listening to this and telling yourself you'll slow down later, I need you to pause. Later is not guaranteed. Energy is not guaranteed. Relationships don't stay in place while you're busy elsewhere. Guarding your time doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing that responsibility without boundaries becomes sacrifice without meaning. Before you move on, leave a comment and tell me honestly, what's taking more of your time than it deserves right now? I'm Daniel, 84 years old, and this is what I would do differently if I could go back. Not in theory, not in slogans, in real practical ways that would have changed my life without burning everything down. The first thing I would guard is my evenings. I believed evenings were expendable, that they were flexible, that work could borrow from them without consequence. That was a mistake. Evenings are where life actually happens. They're where conversations slow down, where children talk, where partners reconnect, where your nervous system finally has a chance to settle. I would have drawn a line and said, most nights I am not available. Not because I was lazy, because I was human. Work adapts faster than families do. If you set a boundary, work complains and then adjusts. If you don't, it keeps taking. The second thing I would guard is my attention. I was physically present in many moments, but mentally absent. I answered emails while nodding. I listened while planning my response. I sat at the table while still at work. Attention is what makes time matter. 10 minutes of real attention is worth more than hours of distracted presence. I would have put the phone down more often, closed the laptop earlier, allowed silence instead of filling every gap. No one at work would remember the extra email I sent at night. My family would have remembered my presence. The third thing I would guard is my health before it demanded protection. I treated my body like a tool. Push it, override it, fix it later. Later arrived with limits. I would have slept more. Not perfectly, just more. I would have taken stress seriously instead of wearing it like a badge. I would have stopped calling exhaustion discipline. Your body is not separate from your time. When your health goes, your time shrinks. Guarding your time means guarding the system that lets you use it. The fourth thing I would guard is my right to say no without explanation. I believed every no required justification. Every boundary needed an apology. It doesn't. I would have said no to extra work that didn't matter. No to being constantly available. No to expectations that quietly drained me. No is not a rejection of responsibility. It's a declaration of limits. People who benefit from your over-availability will always resist your boundaries. That doesn't mean the boundaries are wrong. The fifth thing I would guard is ordinary days. I treated ordinary days like placeholders between important moments. They weren't. Most of life is ordinary. And that's where meaning lives. I would have stopped rushing through days just to get to the weekend. Stopped postponing enjoyment until vacations or milestones. You don't live in highlights, you live in repetition. Guard the quality of that repetition. The sixth thing I would guard is relationships early, not later. I thought I could reconnect once work slowed down. I underestimated how much closeness depends on shared time, not good intentions. I would have protected weekly rituals, dinners, walks, conversations without agendas. Relationships don't survive on love alone. They survive on availability, and availability is a time decision. Finally, I would guard myself from the belief that sacrifice always equals virtue. Some sacrifice is necessary, Not all sacrifice is noble. When sacrifice becomes habitual, unquestioned, and endless, it stops being virtuous. It becomes avoidance. I avoided slowing down because I was afraid of what I'd face in the quiet, afraid of realizing how much I had postponed. If I could go back, I would choose fewer things and choose them more deliberately. I would stop confusing productivity with purpose. I would remember this simple truth much earlier. Your job will ask for everything you're willing to give. Your life won't. Your life requires you to choose it. I don't tell you this to make you regret working hard. I tell you this so you don't confuse working hard with living well. Guard your time, not aggressively, intentionally. Because once it's gone, no amount of overtime can buy it back. If this reached you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment and say one boundary you're going to set this week. Someone else needs to hear this too, and you might be the reason they do. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.